Hello and welcome to Team Talk with me, Julia Pitsy-Kamey, elevating you from damaging decline to dynamic performance and unleashing your inner athlete for prolonged life and using mind-body alchemy. Now, this week, what are we going to talk about? Well, of course, looking at key elements that can help keep you strong and powerful as you get older, especially after 50. When you're in 40, but you need to start doing it when you're in 40, and if you've been doing it before then, they're brilliant. You've set yourself a great foundation. But this one key element I'm going to bring to you today is really going to be important. Not only if you're playing sport, but indeed if you are playing a sport, absolutely crucial to bring it in and start practicing it now. I'm going to tell you the safest way to implement it as well, and what sort of 3 key techniques that you need to use to maximize the effects of this element. Now, it's also important for everyday life, believe it or not, especially as we get older. You know, as we know, our strength and agility decreases as we get older, as well as tension within the muscles and the soft tissues, such as the tendons and the ligaments. And these things need to be stressed in a safe environment to prevent injury. And we want to make the most out of our muscle function. Now, most people will go out there when it comes to getting fit and healthy. They will implement a lot of strength training. I absolutely advocate that. I've been doing it a lot myself over the years. In fact, I started out when I was about 24, 25 in gyms, doing a lot of strength training, doing just that. I mean, I really got into my weightlifting and a bit of bodybuilding, that kind of thing. And I was training, 6 days a week, doing 2 or 3 hours a day in my 20s and 30s. And I loved it. I enjoyed it. And I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity to do that. And I think that's given me the best foundation possibly. And that's why I feel I'm very, very strong now, even though I'm 56. And I still enjoy doing it, obviously not to the same degree as I did then. I don't feel I need to. But it's a really important part of my health and fitness, as well as other elements such as flexibility, etc. But we will go into that on another day, not today, because today I want to bring to you this one important technique and help you implement it from today onwards. Now, obviously, a bit of a caveat. If you do want to implement it, I do advise you go to your doctor. If you have a personal trainer, go ahead and talk to them about it. Get some advice. Make sure you are ready to implement this and that you can do it, and so you do it safely as well. Or if maybe it just isn't for you, then that's fine as well. But do take advice before starting on this, because there is certain tips and techniques that you need to do to progress to this. You don't just go into it straight away. So yeah, I want the best advice, and make sure you do it safely as well. So further ado, what is this? Now, as I say, when it comes to building up bulk or toning the muscles, we do a lot of strength training, and that is very, very important for daily tasks. So as we age, our body is strong and everything works well for us and functions well for us, and what is needed, not just for everyday life, but for athleticism as well. Okay, so we know about strength. Strength's really important. And strength also slows down the aging process. Now, but what else? What else can we be implementing? But the other modality that I'm going to talk to you about now is power. Now, power, believe it or not, yes, athletes use a lot of power. We know that in their training and conditioning. And if you are taking part in a sport, if you haven't been doing it, start doing it. Start getting a process in place to get you on that journey, so you get from beginning and progress slowly through it safely, because it's really going to change how you perform in your sport as well, but not only in your sport, but in everyday tasks. So think of an everyday task that you might use power for that's going to be really important. Imagine something as simple as crossing the road. So it's strength and endurance that's going to get you across the road, however slowly or quickly you do that. But it is the power that's going to propel you out of the way of an oncoming car if it comes out of the blue. So power is even important in those instances, and to do so without falling over and without injuring yourself. So it doesn't matter what the task is, doesn't matter whether you're an athlete or not, doesn't matter whether you're playing a sport or not, having an element of power in your training, in your toolbox, is going to help you prevent injuries. And it's going to help maintain the muscle function more effectively. So, excuse me, I'm a bit of a dry throat today. So what can we do? So other benefits, you don't want to also, it's going to help you avoid falling as well. So as you get older and you get maybe a little bit more unstable, using power is going to help you prevent you from falling over as well. And those simple things, like twisting and turning and doing it also in a multifunctional way. So you don't just want to do it sort of from front to back or side to side. You need to be using it through rotation, but you do that progressively. You don't go straight into that. So as I said before, don't forget to get advice from your trainer or your GP or your physio, whoever it is you are speaking to right now. So what are the rules? Well, the first main rules is you need to, number one, is make sure you need to have absolutely optimal muscle balance. Now, what do I mean by muscle balance? Well, very often through life, our muscles and joint, the way we move, changes. And what this can do is what we call, it causes dysfunction around the joints a little bit. So you can have some muscles that are very tight and some muscles that are a little bit too stretched or weak. So you've got overactive or what we call underactive. So underactive is the sort of weaker, maybe overstretched. And that comes from all sorts of dysfunction. It could be postural, it could be overuse. If you've been playing a sport and you've never had any sort of assessment of your movement or anything like that, then it could be that if you're starting to get little niggles, little aches and pains, or you're not finding your form is quite as good as it was, there could be some dysfunction, some imbalance going around between the different muscle groups. One set of groups becoming too overactive and the other one underactive. So that firstly needs to be addressed before you jump into doing any power. Because if you do that without proper movement patterns within the joint, so that's your ankles, your knees, your hips, your shoulders, lower back, all these things are moving optimally, you will likely cause more injury. So that is the first stage of correcting anything before you move on to your power, because you can only move on to power training once you have everything in balance and everything moving effectively, so the right muscles are going to be used for the right action, because the body is very good at adapting. If whatever it needs to create a movement, if the muscle intended for that movement isn't functioning optimally, then what will happen, the body will use something else, another part of the muscle or another muscle to actually create the movement. But what that actually ends up doing is causing more dysfunction, more pain, more inflammation, more stress, and the likelihood of injury. And that is not what we want. So first of all, you need to make sure every muscle is moving in the best possible way that it can be, so you can perform the exercises efficiently. How do you do that? Easy, you get a movement assessment. Most trainers today should be able to do a relatively good assessment. I have a very, very in-depth evaluation process when I'm setting people's programs, so I can look and make sure there's no underlying issues that could actually inhibit your performance, because I want you to get the maximum effort from your exercise, and then you get the results effectively and quickly, but in an absolutely safe way. So for me, that is the number one issue for you to begin with. So making sure that you have absolute best possible movement throughout all parts of the body. Remember, the body doesn't work in single parts. Everything works synergistically all together. So that is going to be needed when you're performing power exercises. I'm getting all my words mixed up. So also you need to have coordination. So this is included in all of that. It's making sure everything is coordinated, but it's not just about the muscles and the nerves. It's also about your mind, making sure your mind is engaged with it. You cannot be distracted. You absolutely need to focus. And that's another great benefit actually of using lots of power, or what we call reactive movements, is that it helps strengthen that connection, that relationship between the mind and the body, so the brain, the central nervous system and the body. So it's actually going to be much better for you moving on, because a lot of the exercises that you do in terms of this reactive power stuff, because it creates quicker movements, more explosive movements, then you're going to have to really be focused and be more physically aware. So that's another great benefit for you moving forward. Also, what you want to do is, when you're correcting all this coordination and muscle movement, is you need to create good stability. And that is one of the first parts of what we call corrective training, if you like, is looking at stability in your joints. Because remember, power movements are very explosive movements. So you do need to add in that element of stability first before you move on. And stability isn't just about doing bridges and things like that. You can actually start off with basic core stability, but then you can move that through into the kind of stability whilst you're including it with power. So your power movement can have stability elements to it as you progress forward. And the other thing, of course, is technique. Technique is absolutely crucial. Whatever exercise you're doing, doesn't matter whether it's stability, balance, strength, power, whatever it is, technique is really important. And it never ceases to amaze me when I go into gyms, and even when people are with, their trainers, are being given exercises that they're really not ready for. They're not able to perform them efficiently. So even if they're younger, when you're not performing those exercises efficiently, you're going to find out later in life you're going to have more aches and pains and problems moving forward. So really checking technique, making sure when you're lifting anything, when you're jumping, whether you're twisting, turning, whatever it is you're doing it with maximum technique. And that takes a little bit of time and effort. And I know that can be really frustrating for some people because you just want to get on and enjoy the exercise. But believe you me, technique is really key because, as I say, you don't want to have problems moving forward. You don't want to reduce the risk of injury, because that is the key, obviously, as I said before, with power, is its element of being able to improve your muscle function and reduce injury under stress, under that power, under that explosive movement. Okay, which is not, as I say, not always important just for sport, but also in everyday life as well. So getting that element of technique really, really, really key. So how many times a week should you be doing this? Well, obviously it depends on how advanced you are. Are you a new beginner? Are you someone getting back into training? If you're getting back into training, you haven't done anything for a long time, I would start off with a really, really basic program without any power initially, build up your strength and endurance and stability, and then bring in the elements of power. There are lots of different ways you can do that. If you're wanting to build up more bulk as well, maybe more strength bulk, you can always add in the element of power to that. Start off really slowly, get the beginner sort of power exercise, and again, build up to that. But if you're playing a sport when there's a lot of power needed, then absolutely get a good progressive power plan in place is possible, but you can develop that as you move forward and do something very more sport specific if that's what you desire to do, even though you may not be a professional athlete or athlete anymore. Keeping those elements are going to be really useful to you. Now, how many times a week? As I said, I didn't tell you that, did I? So on average, about 2 to 4 times a week, you want to be including it. Now, it wouldn't just be purely a power program. You probably include strength with it and endurance, depending on, it depends on your goals. But ideally, those power elements need to be brought in about 2 to 4 times a week. In terms of repetitions, probably about 5 to 10 repetitions, I would say. And what we do is with exercises, you want a tempo to it. Now, with power tempo, again, it's more explosive. So it's strong, explosive tempo to it. And again, you're looking about anywhere between 3 to 5 sets. And you can double up some of the power with your strength exercise. You do a strength and a power exercise as well, which is good actually in sport moving forward. In terms of rest time, as I say, really, really important when you're implementing any sort of power exercise, particularly as we get older, making sure you have that rest and recovery. I would say, depending on what you're doing, if you're just doing individual pairs of exercises, probably 1 minute to 2 minutes between them, between each set. And then if you're doing more circuits, then I would say 3 to 5 minutes, really depending, but do make sure you have that element of recovery. You don't need to be doing power every day. And in fact, if you're a woman and you're over 40, and especially if you're over 50 and you've got all those hormone changes, you don't want to be doing too much HIIT exercises, too much power exercises, because in terms of your hormone imbalances, because you're going to get an increase of what we call, you may have heard listed before, increases of things like cortisol, because obviously your estrogen and things like that, you'd be decreased and you get an increase of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. And if you have too much of the stress hormones over an extended period of time, that is going to impact the results you are going to get from your health and fitness program, especially if you try and do things like lose weight. And you can find you get more aches and pains moving forward. So limit the power elements you put into your program. So what are the key things that you need to really focus on? As I say, just as a reminder, so you're going to look at how you move. So your movement, getting a good movement assessment, making sure there's no imbalances. So your coordination is good. Okay. You're going to then make sure it's nice and stable. You've got all that. Add in the stability first, particularly if you're starting out, but you can keep those stability. It will just change as you bring in those power elements in there. You'll have more stability, power-based exercises rather than just pure stability. But again, you have to work up to it, especially if you've not done it before. And then it's technique, just making sure your technique, you need to make sure you get this progressive overload with it. And obviously you're going to be using the increase your sets, lower your reps, and it's going to be very much an explosive tempo that you're going to use with that when you've got good movement. So those are the things to prioritize. And don't forget, of course, nutrition is really key when you're implementing any power. Make sure you're getting your protein. That is really good, and obviously hydrated. So after all that, all you need to do is remember to check with your doctor first. If you are interested in finding out more and you would like more detailed evaluation, then do pop along to teamclinicservices.com and we can get you on, jump on your free discovery call, and we will be able to give you free tips and tools as to what to do next and advise you on next best step to get your movement assessment in place and start implementing a good systematic progressive plan. But for now, I'd like to thank you for listening to this. I hope it was really useful to you. As I say, power is really important and we all need it moving forward. But yeah, go out there, start getting the advice first, get cleared that you can do this, and then start on your journey implementing more power into your program. But in the meantime, thank you once again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.